What's up, guys? My name is Kyle Kringen. I am with Kringen Performance. I help pitchers throw harder and become overall better athletes. And today I'm going to be talking about how to throw 90 miles an hour. For today, I'm going to go over the bullet points of essentially how do you throw 90 miles an hour. So there's four main components of how to throw 90 miles an hour: strength, mobility, power, and efficiency. Strength. How frequently should we be doing strength work in the first place? We are, first of all, not bodybuilders. We're not power lifters. So what are we training for? We're training for the throw, right? We want to have a lot of absolute and total strength, so we have a ton of potential to throw 90 miles an hour, right? So the movements that we choose and the frequency should reflect that. So it's very intentional how we should be structuring our strength training. Compound movements, what are they? They are exercises that involve 2+ muscle groups when you perform them. So things like a bicep curl or a tricep extension is not going to be a compound. That's going to be an isolation exercise. We are talking about bigger movements like squats or bench presses, deadlifts, things like that that require 2 or more muscle groups to perform the movement. So that's what we should be focusing on in our training. We should also be making sure that we train every single movement pattern. So there's only 6 of them. And this is the way I like to think in terms of how we should train versus like a bodybuilder. Bodybuilders have that lens of, I train body parts specifically, so the exercises they choose reflect that. When we're talking about pitching, it's very fluid motion. There's a lot going on, but we should be focused more on the 6 movement patterns, which are squat, push, pull, hinge, lunge, and carry. Those are the things that we should have in a proper strength program. Essentially, what exercise selection you choose will depend on the time of the season that it is: preseason, off-season, in-season, things like that, and also the capability of the athlete we're working with. We should be using both full range and partial range motion. So we'll talk about that in mobility in a sec, but when you have the ability to move freely in an exercise with full range of motion without pain, we should be doing that, because that's going to increase your overall potential for strength and keep you more injury resilient and more robust as an athlete if you're able to properly and freely move through full range of motion. Partial range of motion is when you can get more into specifically a certain part of the movement to manipulate the variables. So if you are training, let's say, a quarter squat over a full range of motion squat, you're only training that range of motion, right? That quarter motion. And the application for that is so that you can get stronger in just that range of motion. So because the pitching motion itself does not require you to go into, let's say, full range of motion squat, there's a time and a place for that full range of motion squat, but the partial one is going to have a little bit more of an application because you're only getting into a partial range of motion in the actual pitching motion. So we should be training partials on top of full range of motion. Pitching specific and general training, you should have a blend of both, properly done throughout the week, right? 3 to 4 sessions to do both pitching specific and general training. General training, I'm talking about like squat, bench, deadlift, things like that, to where it's very general strength training. It's not specific to any sport unless it's literally powerlifting. And you should be doing pitching specific things, unilateral movements, things that actually have an application towards the pitching motion. You should be doing a blend of both of those things throughout the week. Let's talk about mobility. So the first thing I want to note about mobility, say all joints. So this is ankles, knees, hips, T-spine, that's flexion, that's extension, rotation, shoulders. I'm talking about overhead mobility, flexion, extension, internal, external rotation. All of those things should be a part of your total program to get better at those things. Strength through length. So when you have this joint approach of, I want to get stronger in all of those joint areas, I'm trying to open up that space. So let's just use the example of external rotation, right? So if I am only able to go this far into external rotation, and I'm trying to open that up and get this deeper and deeper and deeper, once I accomplish that through mobility work, and I'm able to get into a deeper range of motion. I don't have strength yet in that deeper range of motion. I have mobility, but I don't have strength. So to be less injury prone and be more robust and durable, we want to create strength in the new range of motion as well. So we want to have strength through length in all of the joints. Then what that's going to do is create movement freedom. So if you have strength through lots of ranges of motion and you essentially can pain-free move through all of these different planes of motion exercises without getting hurt, and you have the capability to do that, then you're going to feel really good in the pitching motion and on the mound. Allows for a smooth delivery, right? If you can do all of those things, you have a lot of range of motion, you're super whippy, as they like to say, and you have no pain, you have strength, then you're going to feel pretty good on the mound. Ground up. So this is an approach I like to take. I mentioned earlier, feet, knees, hips, joint by joint approach, where we want to be strong from the ground up because that's where our energy comes from. It comes from the ground up, from the feet all the way up through the chain and then eventually through the arm to the ball. So we want to be strong and stable in all of these areas. And when you're doing stability work, that kind of goes hand in hand with mobility. You're also creating stability depending on the exercises you're choosing, but we want to have stable joints as well as mobile joints so that we are more injury resilient. Next is power. So when we have strength and mobility, that is great. It's a great recipe to have movement freedom, like we mentioned, and be very pain-free and resilient. However, you can have those things and move slowly still. So that's why we need to do specific things for power during your training week. Like I said, 3 to 4 times of strength, but that doesn't mean on other days you can't do power work. So sprints, throws and tosses with med balls, fast eccentrics in the weight room. So when you're deliberately doing one of those compound movements, but with the intention to move explosively and quickly versus just trying to load up the bar super heavy and just get the bar up. The focus is on how fast can I move that bar. Then you got isometric holds for stability, tendon health. You got jumps for explosive power. You got plyometrics from the ground up, right? All these plyos and hops probably start from the ground up, where you have very strong feet, ankles, and reactive strength. That's all going to be great when creating power from the ground up all the way through the chain to the ball. Then, when you have power, you also have athleticism. So this is kind of like an all-encompassing thing. Everything that we've talked about, strength, mobility, and power, all ends up to athleticism, because if you have all those things, there's really no reason that you're not going to be very athletic. You're going to be very athletic. Think of an athlete who has a ton of strength, right? They can move a ton of weight. They also can move freely without any pain in all these different ranges of motion. And on top of that, they can also jump high. They can also move weight quickly and then run really fast as well. That's an athlete right there. We need to have power work to really round everything together, because the pitching motion is a very instantaneous, powerful movement that requires that athleticism, that requires those fast twitch muscle fibers that are going to actually apply to the pitching motion. So we need all of these things to throw 90 miles an hour. The last thing we'll talk about is efficiency, mechanical efficiency. So your actual throwing motion. If you have all of these things, you're very athletic, you have all this potential to throw 90 miles an hour. The potential is there. Now you need to round it out and actually utilize your mechanics efficiently so you can actually throw hard. Because if you have no mechanical efficiency, but you have all of these things, you're not unlocking that potential. Energy transfer. So essentially transferring fluidly that energy from the chain, from the feet, all the way up through the kinetic chain to the ball. If that is efficient, you're probably going to throw 90 miles an hour. Timing and sequencing, again, goes along with mechanical efficiency. If you have good timing, if you have good sequencing on different parts of the throw, probably going to throw 90. No limited movements. So again, kind of goes in line with movement freedom. If you can move freely with a large range of motion and you have a lot of power, and athleticism, then you're probably going to be pretty efficient. This is pretty much just hovering over the surface of really what it takes to throw 90 miles an hour. I'm going to go deeper into all of these different things in other videos. So we'll call this part 1 of how to throw 90 miles an hour. We'll see you in the next video.